Beginning in the late 19th century, the Canadian government funded a network of residential schools for Indigenous children. Today's guest recounts the horrors that took place in those schools and puts a personal face on the victims who still suffer from the abuses they witnessed and endured. He's Julian Brave Noisecat this week on Story in the Public Square. Hello and welcome to Story in the Public Square, where storytelling meets public affairs. I'm Jim Ludus from the Pell Center at Salve Regina University.
And I'm G. Wayne Miller, also with Salve's Pell Center.
And our guest this week is Julian Brave Noisecat, a former political activist turned documentary filmmaker whose debut documentary, Sugar Cane, was nominated for an Academy Award. He's also the author of a new book, We Survived the Night. He's joining us today from British Columbia. Julian, welcome to the show.
Good morning, or as it literally translates, you all survived the night. Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled to have you here. Sugar Cane is a remarkable documentary. We want to acknowledge that your co-filmmaker on this was Emily Cassie, who's also an investigative journalist. We want to acknowledge her work in this as well. But Sugar Cane, again, it's a remarkable film. Do you want to tell us what led you, though, from being a political activist to a documentary filmmaker? Is there a through line there?
Writing has actually always been the thing that I've dreamt of doing, and filmmaking is something more that kind of found me and happened to me. So the reason that I started making Sugarcane was actually not my own, drive or anything. It wasn't that I set out to become a filmmaker, and I definitely did not set out to tell such a heavy story and personal story about my family's connection to the residential schools. But at my first reporting job, I sat next to a woman the same age as me who grew up in Toronto and was an investigative journalist and filmmaker, and it happened to be Emily Cassie. And we became friends at our first job. That was over 10 years ago now. And after the discovery of more than 200 potential unmarked graves at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in May of 2021, Em asked if I'd be open to collaborating with her on a documentary about the subject. And because of my family's, very intense connection to that history, I took some time to think about it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a documentary about that subject. I'd never made a documentary in my entire life. And eventually I decided to say yes. And, the crazy thing about it is that when I said yes, Em said, "That's great. I've identified a First Nation that's about to begin its own investigation, and that investigation is happening at St. Joseph's Mission near Williams Lake, British Columbia." And when she said that, as you might imagine, I was completely floored because, of course, that's the school that my family was sent to and where, to the best of my knowledge, my father was born and then, found in the trash incinerator. And, what are the odds, right, that the person who I sat next to at my first reporting job, which was in the United States, in New York, would be a Canadian from Toronto, who would be a filmmaker who'd want to make her first film about this subject, that we'd be randomly sat next to each other. I wasn't even supposed to be in the New York newsroom, actually, that summer. And that of the 139 Indian residential schools across the country, she would happen to select the school my family was sent to focus a documentary on. So I think, to me, it's perhaps more than coincidence.
So, Julian, you've given us a little flavor of what the film is about, but for the audience who has not seen Sugar Cane yet, do you want to give us a quick overview?
Sure. Well, firstly, I really hope people take the time to find it and watch it. It's on National Geographic, which is part of Disney Plus. In the United States, you can also watch it on Hulu. But the film follows an investigation that unfolded at the residential school my family was sent to, St. Joseph's Mission near Williams Lake, British Columbia. So rather than being like a traditional sit-down talking head kind of format documentary, maybe like a Ken Burns documentary or Ezra Edelman's work, it's a verite documentary. So it actually follows this investigation as it's unfolding in real time, and then sort of the consequences and the reckoning that it engenders in the sugarcane Indian Reserve and the surrounding Secwepemc community. So it's really about our reckoning with this history of what we consider a genocide in Canada.